The ongoing war involving the United States, Israel, and Iran has triggered one of the most dramatic shocks to global energy markets in recent years. Oil prices have surged past the $100 per barrel mark for the first time since 2022 as military escalation and disruptions to shipping routes threaten a major portion of the world's fuel supply. Amid this turmoil, the administration of the United States President Donald Trump has taken a controversial step, issuing a temporary authorization that allows countries to purchase Russian oil already stranded at sea. The decision, announced by U.S. Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent, is designed to stabilize global markets rattled by the conflict in the Middle East and the effective shutdown of the Strait of Hormuz, a maritime choke point through which roughly 1/5 of the world's oil typically passes. The waiver applies only to Russian crude and petroleum products that were already loaded on vessels by March 12 and will remain valid until April 11. U.S. officials say the measure is strictly temporary and narrowly targeted at preventing further disruption in global supply chains. Scott Bessent said to increase the global reach of existing supply, the U.S. Treasury is providing a temporary authorization to permit countries to purchase Russian oil currently stranded at sea. He further clarified that the move was designed to avoid a broader economic shock rather than strengthen Russia financially. Scott Bessent said this narrowly tailored short-term measure applies only to oil already in transit and will not provide significant financial benefit to the Russian government, which derives the majority of its energy revenue from taxes assessed at the point of extraction. The decision has come at a time when global markets are facing extraordinary pressure. The conflict between the United States, Israel, and Iran has pushed oil prices sharply higher and created uncertainty across the global economy. Analysts say the temporary authorization could help unlock large quantities of Russian oil currently stuck in transit due to sanctions restrictions. At the same time, the move has sparked intense political debate in Washington. Critics argue that allowing the sale of Russian oil, even temporarily, could undermine sanctions imposed after Russia's invasion of Ukraine. Among the most vocal critics was Senator Jeanne Shaheen, a senior member of the Senate Foreign Relations Committee, who warned that the policy could strengthen Moscow financially during an ongoing war. Jeanne Shaheen said as Putin helps Iran target Americans in the Middle East, the president is now filling the Kremlin's war coffers. She also criticized the broader strategy behind the conflict and its economic consequences. Jeanne Shaheen said instead of squeezing the Russian faltering economy, the president's ill-planned war is giving Putin a windfall while American families face higher prices. The criticism reflects a broader dilemma facing Western policymakers. On one hand, stabilizing global energy markets is crucial to preventing a severe economic downturn. On the other hand, any policy that appears to benefit Russia risks undermining years of sanctions designed to weaken Moscow's financial resources. The crisis itself is rooted in the rapidly escalating war involving Iran, the United States, and Israel. The conflict erupted after a series of strikes and retaliatory attacks that quickly spread across the region. Iran responded by intensifying military operations and threatening one of the most critical maritime routes for global energy shipments. The Strait of Hormuz, a narrow channel between Iran and the Arabian Peninsula, carries roughly 1/5 of the world's oil supply. When tensions escalated and shipping through the strait became effectively blocked, global markets reacted immediately. Tankers stopped moving through the route, insurance premiums surged, and traders began scrambling for alternative supply. Within days, oil prices soared past the $100 per barrel mark, triggering fears of a global energy crisis. Even if hostilities were to end quickly, analysts warn that reopening the strait take weeks or even months due to security concerns, damaged infrastructure, and the presence of mines or military threats. In the meantime, governments across the world are searching for ways to cushion the economic impact. Some countries have begun tapping into emergency oil reserves, while others are considering price controls or fuel subsidies to prevent domestic economic shocks. Iran has also made strategic moves during the crisis that have raised alarm in Western capitals. Reports indicate that Tehran has allowed Russia and China special access to the Strait of Hormuz during the blockade, enabling certain shipments to continue while restricting other routes. Iranian officials reportedly framed the decision as a gesture of appreciation toward countries that have supported Iran diplomatically during the conflict. The war has also raised new concerns about cooperation between Russia and Iran on the battlefield. Western officials believe that the two countries have increasingly shared military technologies and tactics. The United Kingdom's Defense Secretary John Healey said British authorities were investigating whether Russia had played a role in Iranian drone tactics used during recent attacks. John Healey said, at the moment, we're taking part in analyzing the drone that struck the hangar at Akrotiri, Cyprus, for any evidence of Russian or any other foreign components and parts. He suggested that similarities between Iranian drone operations and tactics used by Russia and Ukraine may not be coincidental. John Healey said, I think no one will be surprised to believe that Putin's hidden hand is behind some of the Iranian tactics, potentially some of their capabilities as well. According to British officials, the drone attack targeted a Royal Air Force facility in Cyprus and is currently under detailed investigation. While the damage was limited, the incident raised fears that the Middle East conflict could expand geographically. Healey also noted that soaring oil prices could benefit Russia financially, potentially strengthening its position in the war in Ukraine. John Healey said not least because one world leader that is benefiting from the sky-high oil prices at the moment is Putin. It helps him with a fresh supply of funds for his brutal war in Ukraine. The crisis has not been limited to military bases. Reports of attacks on commercial ships in the Middle East have further heightened tensions and alarmed global markets. John Healey said we've seen the reports overnight of more civilian commercial ships that have been attacked unarmed doing their normal business. He warned that targeting civilian vessels represents a serious escalation of the conflict. John Healey said this is a major escalation from Iran. It is a breach of international law. Healey emphasized that the situation is now affecting economies around the world. John Healey said it's a very serious situation that is having an impact on oil prices and the cost of living for everyone. As tensions rise, European governments have been debating how far they should become involved in the conflict. United Kingdom Prime Minister Keir Starmer defended his government's decision not to participate in the initial military strikes against Iran. Speaking in Parliament, he argued that Britain's priority should be reducing tensions rather than expanding the conflict. Keir Starmer said we are not increasing the cost of petrol. He also stressed that the government was taking measures to protect the economy from the consequences of the conflict. Keir Starmer said we're absolutely clear in taking the measures that are necessary to deal with the impact of the conflict in Iran. Starmer emphasized that diplomatic efforts remain essential to preventing further escalation. Keir Starmer said the best thing that we can do is to work with others to de-escalate the situation. He also confirmed that Britain had deliberately chosen not to join the initial military offensive. Keir Starmer said, I took the decision that we should not join the initial U.S.-Israeli offensive against Iran. European nations are also worried about another consequence of the conflict, the strain it may place on global weapons supplies. Many European countries are currently purchasing large quantities of military equipment to support Ukraine in its ongoing war against Russia. If the United States continues to direct large amounts of military resources toward the Middle East, European officials fear that production capacity for weapons and ammunition could become stretched. The overlapping crises, the war in the Middle East, Russia's invasion of Ukraine, and the volatility in global energy markets have created one of the most complex geopolitical moments in recent history. The temporary authorization allowing Russian oil shipments to be sold illustrates how quickly strategic priorities can shift in times of crisis. While sanctions remain a central element of Western policy toward Moscow, preventing a collapse in global energy supply has become an urgent priority. Analysts warn that the coming weeks could determine whether the crisis stabilizes or deepens further. If the Strait of Hormuz remains effectively closed, global markets may face prolonged disruption and sustained high energy prices. For consumers around the world, the consequences are already being felt. Rising oil prices often translate into higher transportation costs, increased food prices, and broader inflation throughout the economy. Countries heavily dependent on imported fuel are particularly vulnerable to such shocks. Governments are therefore racing to blunt the economic impact. Strategic oil reserves are being tapped, emergency economic measures are being debated, and diplomatic efforts are underway to prevent further escalation. Yet the long-term outlook remains uncertain. The intersection of war, energy security, and global politics has created a volatile situation that could reshape international relations for years to come. For now, the decision to allow limited sales of Russian oil remains one of the most controversial developments of the crisis, a move aimed at stabilizing